Hey, it's Mike from Apollo, and today we're doing something a little different. We're going to talk about the 11 greatest challenges in creating a growth strategy. Now, the good news is they map completely to the 11 custom GPTs that I've built for you for free that you can use. And if you've been following the channel, you'll notice that we're about halfway through studying each of those GPTs individually. This time, we're going to look at the 11 steps, the 11 issues, and each of them has a free tool, so I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So, the good news, I'm not only going to tell you about the problems, I'm going to tell you about the answers to these problems, because creating a growth strategy is a big undertaking. Okay, so if you have a growth strategy, it basically means you've got a plan to win. So it's not just about planning timeline and activities and scope of them. It's really answering this question of how are you going to win and how are you going to grow repeatably, scalably, predictably. So some of the things that you might have, I want to kind of give you an indication of what it looks like to have a great growth strategy. Validated ICP, the ideal customer profile. You really have a crisp, rich picture of who they actually are. Revenues, growth is predictable. You're unified across the different touch points, across go-to-markets, even if they're for different audiences. You know what you are doing and what you're not doing, and that there's some scale there. So you're not too heavily dependent on new people in the team, but you've got workflows and automations to support you. So that's what a winning strategy looks like. It is not, for sure, a static PDF sitting on the Google Drive. This is a killer slide. So this is really mapping those 11 strategies, 11 challenges within the strategy. So you can see here that, really there's questions of like, what are we really solving for, right down to brand personality, doing a discovery before you jump into strategy, and look at some of these killer questions like, what's the real bottleneck we're solving for? Which segment has the highest value to us? These are some of the things that come up through these. Don't stress though, I will hopefully provide some answers for each and every one of these. Okay, so up front, you're initiating this project. Let's build a growth strategy. Well, what I find is that the real question here is, what are we truly solving for? What is the success factor, or what is the key challenge about how we win? What is the blocker here before you get too far into things? So you might be saying it's an incredibly long cycle from start to finish, from prospect to sale. You might have poor conversion rates throughout the funnel. Maybe it's onboarding, maybe they're all going straight out the back door. This really orientates you, even before you start setting any more foundations for the growth strategy. I think you really need to diagnose the real challenge, the real constraint, what's going wrong. And for each of these 11 challenges, I've got a free custom GPT tool you can use. Here you'll see there's a link to the Growth Motions diagnostic. Also in the comments and in the description, you'll find a link to sort of an overview of all of these tools so you can download them. So don't stress. If you need one or two in particular, there's a link in description and comments. Okay, so this Growth Motions tool is really going to help you really ask, what are we really solving for? So with that in mind, that was like a very inwards looking stage. Like, what's the challenge we inside the business are trying to overcome? The second biggest challenge is, just having weak market intelligence, assuming what's going on outside in the world and not really knowing. Often internally we are taking for gospel what a few clients have said to us or a few prospects have said to us. What I suggest here, if you want to have a better sense of what's happening outside of the business, benchmark your competitors, understand the buying triggers from your customers and what their expectations are. You need to really take a bit of a point of view beyond the business, competitive forces, customer challenges, all those trends and dynamics, because they really help you build context. because what's going to happen further in this process is you're going to make a lot of decisions, and this is all context building for you. Okay, also a great company snapshot tool here for you, how you can avoid weak market intelligence. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the funnel for the first time, but not the last. So those first two context challenges really play on internal business dynamics, then on market forces. Now we kind of move in this third step, and this third challenge is understanding your funnel. And what I find is that growth companies can get particularly obsessed with one part of the funnel, one tactic that maybe works really well, maybe one execution that is struggling. But really there's these bigger thematics, like how long is the journey duration for a prospect to customer? Where do we see unusually high drop-off rates? What's it costing us to actually acquire these customers? And are we benchmarking this against industry practice? So I would encourage you to really look at what you're doing, and I think you could do a lot of reflection, not only once you've looked at things internally, but then compare them to how other people in your industry are doing. This can really set like a really powerful context. So as you get into making choices about your next steps, you really understand internal, external dynamics, business dynamics, marketing dynamics, your funnel, and how your customers are feeling, thinking, and behaving. Okay, so you need to really challenge yourself on that funnel and ask some bigger, more challenging questions. Okay, now so we kind of shift a little bit from this context building into decision making. You may have heard of it. You see here, TAM, SAM, SUM. This is really about thinking about a market. What's the total market? What's the market do you kind of even relate to, and what can you obtain? And I think there was like 10 big decisions in building a proper TAM, SAM, SUM. And my biggest thing is you need to unpack this and go step by step. Because really what you want to avoid is that you have assumed there is a market and you actually don't know there is a market. Just because you talk to a few customers, it doesn't mean there are many customers in the market. I think a lot of the time you see customers are assumed, they're proxies. You take a few interactions and assume that's how the world works. But the reality is one of the most common pivots that you'll see in an early stage company is actually a market pivot. And I believe that's fundamentally because they have misjudged their addressable market calculations. You truly need to be forensic at this stage and be mindful that there are many decisions that you need to make when you're sizing the market, because you just don't want to be operating in a market that is not worth being in. Okay, so if you've got your TAM, SAM, SUM and it's good and it's rigorous, here you can have a lot of fun because you can start to segment off the back of that. And actually the segmentation is really trying to unpick your obtainable market and say, well, where in that obtainable market are the highest yielding niche customers, wait for it, that are ready to buy? And you might see here a bunch of factors I've called out. Digital readiness, their region, team size, budget, tech stack. There are these things called firmographics and technographics. You can see that all in the free GPT. But it's all basically figuring out what characteristics beyond they're in the market. How might you cut, filter, how many employees, how old, how many markets, how many people in the decision-making unit, what tech have they got now? That might be a great indicator of what they might buy in the future. So from this segmentation, you have really prized this beautiful niche. Maybe there's only a couple of thousand of businesses in that niche, but you know that they are full of potential. So don't be too broad on your segmentation. Invert that, go super niche, highly qualified, filtered, and then you'll be off to the races because the likelihood of purchase just got 10x higher. Okay, we're halfway through now. Ideal customer profile. Let's truly understand, based on those segments, what the customers look like. And I love to have a couple of ICPs, a couple of personas that bring it all to life, because what you want to be able to do is understand variations within one firm, maybe try some adjacent kind of looking firms. Maybe you're going direct, maybe you're going through conglomerates and partners. There's all sorts of different routes into your customer, lots of different buying personas, lots of different potential customers. So the key thing for me, though, here is this ideal customer profile. You have to do the work to establish that they truly do exist. You cannot be assuming at this point. So we've got this free tool for ideal customer profile. You really want to be able to get deep into that ideal customer profile and really figure out the jobs to be done, the pains and gains, really very deeply understand that customer, so that when you're actually in front of someone that kind of looks like that, the story you tell resonates. And that gets us to value proposition. So your value proposition takes those jobs to be done, pains and gains that the customer experiences, and connects them to your product or to your service. So this art of product market fit is, this one really matters. And again, what I'm going to emphasize here, you need proof. You need social proof, evidential proof, not only to help you sell your customers, but to know that there is truth when you say this feature helps the customer get this job to be done. There can be no guessing there. There needs to be conviction. That'll help you in sales, but more importantly, if you don't have that conviction, you need to go through this process until you give it. Test with your customers, learn from your customers, make sure that your product market fit and your value proposition canvas match up. Don't just claim that you do something. Prove it, know it, have the evidence. This is number 7. Okay, number 8. So you've got a good ICP, a good value prop canvas. So now you can put that in a message. And well, the interesting thing is there's many different frameworks to tell messages. You got before and after, you've got story brand. There's a lot of different frameworks. The point here is they often match up to different types of companies. They often weight. Do you lean more on the job to be done or more on the pain relievers and the gain creators? Many decisions here in messaging. So this is really important. I think the best example is if you're creating a new market, then you really have to focus on the job to be done, because people might not truly even be aware of the pains and gains associated with that job to be done. You have to make sure that people understand how important it is, its role, and then at the right time, by the way, we have the solution. If you're in a highly competitive, mature market, then you're often battling out on the pain relievers and the gain creators. So there's a lot of choices here. We've got a tool for it. So don't just go and message, because invariably, what do people do? They copy the messaging of the competitors with a little nuance, 2% different, 3% different. Find your true story to be told. Okay, so picking up from messaging, brand personality is essential. And it's not just for business to consumer, it's also for B2B. And the thing for sure is like a great brand personality really means you know how to show up, how to turn up. For example, if a cybersecurity brand had a lot of playful branding and jokes and was very like loose with its language, well, that just doesn't really accelerate or enhance or even amplify the messaging. In fact, it's contradicting it. And I use this extreme example because if your brand personality fits the message, which fits the value prop, which fits the ICP, which belongs in the market and the segment, you have a very beautiful thing happening. And a lot of companies never achieve that harmony, but you can if you use these tools, but also have in mind these challenges. So make sure the brand personality reinforces what you're saying. It accelerates and amplifies, gives it that extra nudge. It could be everything from the headline, the look and feel, or just the way you write the error messages in the dialog box of your app. Could be anything in between. Okay, before you jump into strategy and really finalize that funnel, I really encourage to have a little moment of pause and reflection, a discovery moment. Sometimes we can jump too fast into tactics, and this is why I love to have a discovery report that you do first prior to executing a full funnel. And the reason for that is I just think you have to be ready to digest the insights. There's a lot of decisions and insights to this point before you get into funnel. Once you're in the funnel, you're off to the races. Once you get in the funnel, you're going to be so consumed by the tactics. So you can put the learnings from all the tools into the discovery report, GPT, and that'll help you make a lot more sense of things, because this next step is strategy. You need to package this strategy together. You need to harmonize all these factors, the choice of how you educate, attract, convert, how you hook your customers, that they all work together as a system, that they start creating these beautiful loops, and that all the event triggers are priming at each of those different steps. And you want to do this in this kind of continually testing mode. This is what I'm really leading to in this idea that strategy shouldn't be static. It should actually always be in motion and living and breathing, because once you have a great strategy and you build your tactics and you're executing, you get your data, you can come back to your strategy. What does the data tell you? How do you refine the strategy? And then you let the loop continue and continue. It's continuous 24/7. Okay, so on the screen there you've got it. There's the 11 challenges. It's a lot. Each of these has a free tool. If you go and think about using each of these tools, you can do this shift into building systems. Building growth engines is often what I call it. And this can unlock incredible growth for your business. So if you want to put all this together in what I call a growth book, this growth book is something that I do and I can help you with. Or if you just want to access all the tools, head to apolloadvisor.com. There's a link in the description. All the tools for each of the steps, for each of the challenges, they're totally free. I hope you use them. Share with me what you've learned. And if you do think that you need a little bit extra help, reach out to me. I'm always here to help. All right, that's it for today. Catch you next time.